Now then, welcome to the latest instalment, the last instalment of Red Army TV for the season. We're at the Longlands Club. Fantastic stuff. They get right behind the Boro. Every home game coach is going from here, Boro fans going from here to the Riverside, all that kind of stuff. So it's great to end the season out and about at the Longlands. And a great panel in store. Jim Platt, ex-hero of mine when he was in goal. Marc Proctor, also a hero of mine. And a man who wasn't a hero of mine is Mark Ifano, but he is now. Hello, mate. How are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Great to have you with us, fellas. The season's gone. Disappointing end for the fans because we had that expectation in the playoffs. The lottery, that is the playoffs, but we didn't make it through at the final. Jim, was it a good or a not-so-good season for the Boro?
Well, first of all, the expectations were very high, especially when the chairman said we're going to smash the league. And we bought so many players. I think everybody expected us to be in the top two. But a third of the way in, I think we would have been happy with the playoffs. And certainly when Mr. Poulos took over, I think everybody would have said if we make the playoffs, we'll have done well. So I think we finished where we deserved to finish.
Marc Proctor, because there's two Marks sitting side by side. What sort of a season was it for you?
Probably endorse what Jim said, really. I think after the massive outlay that we spent in the summer with, I think we were seen as the highest spenders in the league. Everyone was expecting to sort of finish in the top two, as Jim said. Monk came in and it didn't quite work for whatever reasons. It took a while to get going and never got going. We kept waiting and waiting. I think on the back of the investment in the pre-season, the chairman thought, well, I've given you the tools for the job and you haven't done the job. So I think that's why the bullet was pulled. Yeah. Tony Poulos came in. I think it took a while for us to sort of settle and understand maybe how we wanted the team to play, which created some inconsistency with the results. And then I think we all had a bit of a wobble and thought maybe we're not going to make playoffs. And again, like Jim said, we eventually sneak in there and think, okay, maybe it could be our year, you know. And then I think we fell a little bit short. And I think, for me, from day one, we lacked the creativity to the team, which probably the new man, Tony Poulos, identified, but didn't really invest in the January window. And so I'm expecting probably in the close season, there'll be some central midfield players coming in with a bit of flair, a bit of creativity, and hopefully give us that little bit of edge that we're missing that, you know, we got found out in the end. Well,
we'll come on to what we expect in the summer a bit later on. It's an hour-long special on Facebook Live. It's half an hour on Made in Teesside. Mark, there was a lot of expectation, huge expectation. You've heard the lads there talking about a lot of money made available, new manager coming in, young, you know, a young, exciting manager people were looking at. Chairman promising to, he used the word smash, whether he said we're going to smash the league or whatever. That's open to debate. Did we get what you expected, or was it a bit of a letdown?
I couldn't agree with the two gentlemen beside me more. Thanks, because at the end of the day, there's not a fan sat the other side of that camera thinking exactly the same. I thought our season ended up in a bit of a damp squib away at Aston Villa away. Just didn't give it a go. But when you spend the money that we did spend, when we make the quotes allegedly or not allegedly that we make that we're going to smash things, and we just fell short. And I agree with Jim that there's not a fan out there, you know, a third of the way through and thinking we've got a chance at the playoffs here, because when we started at Christmas, playoffs were miles away. They were miles away. And every fan sat in that stadium. And I was one of them thinking, Tony Poulos, I've said it a few times on the show, Tony Poulos, is he the right man to come in? Bit negative, is he negative? Is he going to be... He come in, like Mark said, took a couple of games, sort of got us going, pulling the same way as a team. That's what I've seen as a fan, pulling the same way as a team. I'm now looking forward to next season. Well,
let's not look too far forward because we've got to come on to that. Let's focus on the man who started the season off, Gary Monk. I was excited. When he was signed, I thought, great signing. Where did he go wrong?
Where did he go wrong? A lot of changes. Bear in mind, he spent a lot of money, but made a lot of changes as well. The first thing Mr. Poulos did when he came in was cut that squad down. So, you know, from that point of view, it was quite evident that maybe Gary Monk was playing people and rotating because he thought he had to. I think, in my opinion, that unsettled sides. The other thing as well is I don't think he connected with the fans. You know, the first thing Tony Poulos said when he came in is he spoke about where he came from in Wales and how it was a working class place. He mentioned our steel industry. He mentioned their steel industry. Mr. Monk never said a thing. He just came in, took the job and cracked on.
I don't think he ever had the same lineup. Did Gary Monk ever know what his best team was?
No, I wasn't a Gary Monk fan. I would say I didn't like him. He did okay at Swansea and he did okay at Leeds, but doing okay is not what we needed. We needed somebody to get us up. Some of his buys were poor. He never played the same team twice. I think maybe once he did. You can't have a settled team if you keep making changes week in, week out. I think he made something like 8 or 9 or 10 changes for the cup matches. I'm a great believer is if I'm the best right back at the club, I should play every week. And if you're the best left back, you should play every week.
Is this why you fell out with Big Jack when Pat Cuff was given a few games?
He was only given 2 games, but he wasn't as good as me. That's why I was in the team. Man. But if I'm the best goalkeeper, I should play every week. He kept making changes. I don't know why, but he kept making 2 or 3 changes. Sometimes you make 1 change if somebody's having a bad time or is injured, but you can't make 3 or 4 changes. Like, I mean, if I'm playing alongside Marc, I know what Marc's like and what he does, if he's quick or slow, or if he's good in the air, he's not good in the air. Suddenly somebody else comes in, he might be slower than Marc, or he might be faster or whatever. So different. And you get used to playing with the same people. Now, I wasn't a Gary Monk fan, and I think Tony Pulis came in, settled the ship, done well, and he did well to get us in the playoffs.
Let's just put this to bed, Marc. Fast or slow?
Medium.
All right then, good lad. What's it like as a player when you can be playing one week, you do nothing wrong, you might be rested the next because somebody else gets a turn?
It's very difficult as a player. I mean, I think sometimes you can have too many riches to pick from, and I think because of the massive investment we had and the number of bodies we brought in, he didn't know what his best 11 was, and I think the changes were probably due to him not really knowing who worked best with who, and he was rotating, trying to find the magic formula, which he never got to, and hence he ends up losing his job. I think we had too many options, too many players, too big a squad.
Yeah, but surely Marc, he must say, he's my best centre forward, he's going to play every week, or he's my best midfielder, or whatever. Yeah, but I mean, and again, in hindsight, I mean, one of the first things I said when Gary Monk was appointed was, I think he might be a little bit undercooked, meaning that he's done a short stint at Swansea, he's had 2 years at Leeds, and all of a sudden he's come to a big club in Middlesbrough who have massive expectations on the back of massive investment, and he hasn't got the experience to deal with it. A very, very difficult league to get out of. And so, consequently, I think he wasn't the right man for the job, and I think he consequently ended up losing his job.
Gibbo's very loyal, isn't he? We've seen that over the years.
Yeah.
But Gary Monk went very quickly. Sheffield Wednesday, I think we won the game, didn't we? And then out he went. Is that a sign that Steve knew what was happening behind the scenes? He'd lost faith in
I just
Gary Monk and had to make a change?
Again, it's all personal opinion, isn't it? But for me, I just think that the chairman knew what he'd said pre-season. He writes the cheques. He knew how much had been spent. He knew the rotation, and he hears the fans. He hears the fans, whether it be on shows like this or whether it be sat in that stadium. And at the end of the day, that's what fired the trigger. Because for me, if you don't get the fans on board, and Jim's absolutely right. I agree. If you're the best right back of the club, you should be playing. If you're the best centre forward, you should be playing, not rotating. You can do that when you're top of the league, start rotating players. When you're trying to get out of a league, the hardest league to get out of, you need to keep a structured side. And I just think that's where he fell foul, really.
David, one other point is that I think Mr. Gibson, Tony Pulis was available. And I think he probably was in touch with Tony Pulis before he sacked Gary Monk.
Do you think in the thought process was there's a guy there that I admire, very experienced, knows what he's doing.
Yep.
Let's have a conversation with
him.
If he's willing to come, then we make the change because I'm concerned anyway.
Remember, the chairman's got a track record of giving people a fair shot in management as well. We've had, the England manager now, Gareth Southgate, got a shot at the club. McLaren got a shot at the club. So bringing a young man like Monk in wasn't really a surprise to people to give him a shot. I just think he got it wrong. I think Monk got it wrong. I don't know the exact figures, but I think Monk spent more money at the Boro on players than he did at his other 2 clubs. So he spent an absolute fortune, and like Mark said, too much rich pickings. You're trying to keep people happy. So you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and the fans could see that. We weren't keeping structured side.
Well,
I would agree as well. I think that ultimately the fans get the manager the sack.
Yeah.
And I think once there's a swell of opinion that he's not up to the job or can't do the job, the chairman will hear that and he acts upon that.
Well, we're going to look ahead, fellas. We're going to take a short break. Still plenty to come. You can get your comments as well on social media. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to the Longlands Club in Middlesbrough. It is Red Army, the end of season review. We've got Jim and two Marks sitting here on the couch. Your comments coming too on social media. So we want to look ahead in this section, fellas. We want to have a new manager. He's going to get a chance to get that brush out and sweep clean, because you don't really get that opportunity during the season, do you? So I thought it was high time just to have a trip back down memory lane when Tony Pulis arrived. These were his first words to the fans at the Middlesbrough Disabled Supporters Association, and he basically said the reason why he came was Steve Gibson.
You get to a stage where, you know, managing football clubs is more about the people you work with than the football club itself, and Steve was just magnificent. You know, you're very, very fortunate, and you know this, that you have a chairman who is as good as what Steve Gibson is. He's absolutely fantastic, and you know, whatever happens, he reminds me so much of Peter Coates in his philosophy, the way he feels about the town, the way he feels about the people in the town, the industry and everything. It's remarkable, really, that him and Peter are so similar. And if you look at my career, my best time was really with Peter, someone that I could associate with, I could argue with, eat with, enjoy life with. And build something, and I hope and pray that, you know, given the opportunity and given a little bit of luck, you know, if we can do the same here as what we did at Stoke, you know, take them to a cup final, take you to a cup final, take you to Europe. I know you've done it all before. It'll be absolutely fantastic.
So the words of Tony Pulis immediately after joining the borough. So it was all about Steve Gibson, the vision he painted. Jim, something you touched on earlier, you thought, you know, Steve made the decision because Pulis was available. So what's so special about him? What do you see? What benefits is Pulis bringing to the club?
He's had 6 promotions with different teams. So that gives him a good record. So I think Steve said, look, this is the man. He kept Stoke up, he kept West Brom up, and everywhere he's been, I think he took Gillingham up as well. So everywhere he's been, he's done well and got promotion. So he has a track record when Gary Monk didn't.
Yeah, he also scored a lot of goals with Stoke City that year. That Stoke were promoted to the Premier League. I think they were second highest goal scorers, Mark. So as much as people talk about one striker up front, is he going to get rid of Assombalonga? He has a track record for scoring goals, attacking and entertaining.
Yeah, he plays a different way. I mean, you know, he's a little bit more direct than most coaches, which a lot of people like. There's nothing the matter with that. If you go a little bit more direct into the box and play with the 2 wide players as he did, you know, it can be deemed as attacking football. But I think the choice of Tony Pulis compared to Gary Monk was a complete full circle, really. Gary Monk, as I mentioned earlier, maybe a little bit undercooked, where Tony Pulis is massively experienced, isn't he? Like Jim says, lots of experience in the different divisions with promotions, and has been around the block quite a few times.
We're at the Longlands Club. We've also got Mark out there with a camera, Phil out there with a mic. Who have you got, Phil?
Hi Dave, yeah, I've got Pete Hodgson, the legend that is Pete Hodgson, and he's got quite a bit to say, so I'm going to get comfortable.
He always has.
Thank you very much, David. Thinking to the future, had a conversation this week with 2 or 3 lads, and we all seem to come to the same conclusion. And the question was generally, for next season, how many changes do you think we need? How many people will go out the door? Or how many people will, from the last squad that we had, stay at the borough? And the general consensus was probably 4 or 5 people, and the rest could be moved on. And we need to replace them with better than we've actually got. Because if we have those lofty ambitions that Gibbo said last year, we'll smash it, whichever way you take that. And I think he put us on the wrong foot, that. It was a bit psychological, that didn't work. We needed better players than we actually had. And if you look at our results, February I said we'd finish maybe 9th or 10th. If we hadn't had the injury to Gested, Bamford wouldn't have been pushed up front. He wouldn't have had his little golden spell of about 5 or 6 games that won us about 9 or 10 points. We'd have finished about 10th. However, look at our stats. We beat most of the teams that ended up below us, and we lost to most of the teams that ended up above us. So we finished about where we deserved to be. I think we're a bit fortunate to get into the playoffs. 6 weeks before that, we had no chance of getting into the playoffs. But I think there need to be major changes. I'd keep the goalkeeper. I'd keep Ayala. I think somebody asked me about young Gibbo, and I said I really think that he needs to leave the club. He gave his heart and soul to the club by signing on again last year to do himself justice and give himself the chance to play at the highest level again, because he's taken a back seat this year, but he needs to get into a little higher profile club. Whether somebody will buy him because he hasn't had the greatest of seasons in our standards, or he's been good enough. Out of the midfield, you look at the old squad, or would you keep possibly Johnny Howson because he's got a good creative brain on him, and Besic, the rest of them. Bamford possibly the only one that's got a creative brain up front and a little bit of talent, can bring people into the game, sees a decent pass, and he's a good natural finisher. And as for Wonder Kid Traore or Wonder Problem Traore, if the Boro were offered £20 million for him, who would take it? Would you take the £20 million for him? Because I'm still of the opinion.
Thanks for that. No, we've got to move on. We're very limited for time, but thanks for the points there. What about Gibbo? Should we keep Gibbo? Should Gibbo go if we get a decent offer? What do you reckon, Mark?
I think it's going to be a foregone conclusion that he's going to go this year. I think, you know, just by a social media tweet and looking into things like that, that he was possibly saying goodbye to the fans. But for me, Peter's right. He hasn't had the best of seasons. If in my opinion, the other guy who stood in stands next to him, Ayala's sort of stood out a little bit more. But I don't think he will be here next year, if in my own opinion. I think he is going to go. I think it's probably a promise the club made to him. If we don't go up, you know, you can go, because at the end of the day, he's a young lad. He wants to play at the highest level. It was only 6-7 months ago he was getting touted to play for England, possibly got the World Cup. So now we're talking he's going to spend another year in the Championship. So for me, I think you probably won't see him in a Boro shirt again.
A couple of comments coming in about players. Stu Wallace, midfielders with pace and eye for goal, creativity. You need to freshen it up. If that means releasing the likes of Stewie, Lead Boots, George, then so be it, upwards and onwards. It seems to be midfield and creativity that quite a few people are mentioning, Mark. I think we discussed that. Yeah. One of you guys touched on that earlier. Will that change quite dramatically the way we see the guys play if we can pull in a couple of decent creative midfielders? Oh,
definitely. I mean, I think, you know, if you have a couple of creative players in the middle of the park who can slide people in or go over the top of people with a bit of, you know, a clever pass or whatever, you know, creates obviously goals, and goals win games. I definitely think it's a shortfall within the present group, and I think it'll be the priority of the club to sort of put that right during the close season.
Terry, by the way, is with us. He's saying he's looking forward to a successful close season. That obviously is transfer market, I'm sure, that you're talking about, Terry. But what about the season coming, Jim? Can you see the Boro with the nucleus of the side they've got? If we can add creative midfielders, can you see them doing a Wolves?
No. You know, the two teams that go up every year, nearly every year, they are the two teams that score the most goals. If you look back in the records, the two teams that go up every year score the most goals. So we have to start scoring goals. Our midfield, if you took the 5 in midfield, including Stuart Downing, who only scores 1 or 2 goals a season. Howson scored 3 or 4. Traore, I think, got 3 or 4. Clayton got none. Bestie got 1. So if you count all of those goals together, you haven't even got 10 goals between them. So we need to get more goals from midfield because we're relying on Sambalonga or Bamford to score all of our goals. So we certainly need more goals.
Sam Hussain says 4-3-3, 2 behind, 1 decent striker. Well, how do you see us doing this season then, Mark?
I think we'll be up there. I think it goes without saying. I don't think the chairman will come out and predict anything this year. But the expectations are still high, aren't they? You know, we brought Tony Pulis in for one reason only, because, like Jim said, he's got a track record of getting teams promoted. So, you know, for me, we're going to be up there. Have we got enough to, bear in mind the teams that were coming down, they'll all want to go straight back up. Have we got enough to go through? Well, I think there'll be massive changes made if we want to do that. And maybe a style of football change would have to change as well.
Mark, Boro's performance or Boro's achievements next season, what do you expect?
Well, I think we fell a little bit short this year, and I think we'll put the ingredients in during the close season to get the job done, hopefully. As simple as that.
Prediction, Jim? What position do you see the Boro finishing in?
Well, you can't predict because you don't know what the team's going to be. He certainly has to bring a lot of new players in, and new players take time to gel into a team. So if he brings 5 or 6 players in, it'll take a good while for them to get together and play well.
Mark, where do you see us finishing?
Well, you know me, I like to sit on the fence. I think we'll finish top.
Good lad.
And they'll only lose 4 games all season, like your season.
There's no chance of that.
You wear it here first.
Okay, so that's it. Just losing 4 games. We're going to finish top. We're going to smash the league. So says Mark Ufano. Jim, Mark, Mark, thank you very much for joining us. Thanks to Longlands Club as well for putting up with us, and we'll catch you next season. See you.